Today's episode is sponsored by HireSuite. HireSuite CRM helps talent acquisition teams hire more people by automating your outreach and nurturing your talent pipelines, allowing your talent teams to be a lot more productive. If you haven't tried HireSuite, head to hiresuite.com and try it out for free.
Welcome to Crafty Sourcer. If you're looking for a raw, unfiltered podcast on all things sourcing in APAC, you've come to the right place. Grab a coffee or wine and join your host and other guests as we dive deep into the complex and ever-evolving world of sourcing, keeping you informed on insights, tools, and even at times, a healthy sourcing debate or two. Now, here's your host, Denise Pereira from Kaleidosource. Settle in and let's get crafty.
Hi everyone, now that I'm finally back from attending the Sourcing Summit in Amsterdam, I can say that my mini dream has come true, and it was also the 10-year anniversary, so massive kudos and congrats to Phil Tussing on running the show for a decade, and it's definitely been one of my highlights of 2023. Now, I can't start this podcast without giving everyone a shout out who made that event such a memorable one. Today's episode is a very special one for three reasons, as I have three phenomenal women joining me today, and I'm also very proud to call them my friends. We have the talented talent hunter herself, Vanessa Raath, joining us, who was also at SoSu and did the opening keynote. We have Sandra Feldman, who shared some examples on making candidates feel valued through outreach, but honestly, it was her Oprah singing in the start that was the highlight of the day. She has recently also co-authored and released her first book called Talent Titans, which is available on Amazon, and we will be dropping the links once the episode is live. We have Gabi Preston-Pyphers. What an amazing journey she's had. She talked about looking at LinkedIn in a new light when you optimize it the right way. Definitely check out her business called Tooled Up Raccoons. It's something new compared to what we are typically used to when we are doing our searches on LinkedIn. Ladies, it is my absolute honor and privilege to have you all on the Crafty Sourcer podcast today.
Hi.
Hello.
Politely.
So good to have you all. Now, Gabi, Sandra, Vanessa, this was the first time I met you all in Amsterdam. Now, I know we've talked on LinkedIn quite a bit for the last couple of months. So I'm sure a lot of people do know of you all, have spoken to you all. But for those who don't, let's go for a bit of an intro. Let's start with you, Gabi. So who's Gabi? What, gets you out of bed every day?
Who is Gabi? What normally gets me out of bed every day is my two small children. I was laughing with Denise earlier. It was like, I can't remember the last time I set an alarm in my house because my kids are like, get out of bed. You're like, no, you get out of bed. I'm just going to supervise my bed right now. I'm just making sure it's safe. But yeah, for those of you who don't know me, like Denise said, I am the CEO and co-founder of Tooled Up Raccoons, which is an AI-powered search builder. It's absolutely insane. Developing this tech over the last 3 years has just blown my mind in terms of how people search on the internet, how things are so inefficient. And to be honest with you, the excitement to address those inefficiencies and really help recruiters level up their hunt to be more inclusive of talent wakes me up every single morning to be like, come on, guys, we can do better. We don't have to just accept being mediocre. There are ways to be better and better and better, and stop buying rubbish tech that makes you dumb. That's what gets me up in the morning. There you go. Apart from my kids, obviously.
That's awesome. Thanks, Gabi. What about you, Sandra?
Oh my God, it's almost the same, I have to admit. It's either the dog or the baby. But anyways, I'm all about outreach. You could call me the outreach nerd, I'd say, because whenever I look into my inbox at LinkedIn, I only see really, really, really boring stuff, and that annoys me. Because I think it's not only about what kind of message you're sending. It's all about how are you treating people? What message do you send out to the world? So with your message, I believe you can make a difference in the world, make it more inclusive, make it more diverse, just make it more kind in general. And that is what really triggers me overall. And this is what my speech was about. That's what I love to talk about 24/7. And it's 7 a.m. here too. So
you did miss the part about the Oprah singing, by the way.
Oh yeah, I mean, in my first life, I would call it. I was thinking about becoming an opera singer, and I was really bad at school and music. And my teacher really thought that would help me to become better in music classes, which is actually pretty funny. So he sent me off to do opera singing classes. And yeah, I actually followed through with that. And yeah, but I never really, really went into that profession because it's super stressful. Not that talent sourcing isn't, but it's much more stable, I think.
It's definitely an art, and we saw that at SoSu as well. Vanessa.
Hey everyone. Well, first of all, Dee, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it. And alongside such lovely ladies and Gabi and Sandra, it's really weird to think that, 3 weeks ago we were all together in real life, and I miss you. So just a quick intro. So my name is Vanessa Raath. I run my own company called The Talent Hunter, and quite weird, Gabi and Sandra's kids get them out of bed in the morning, but I have a cat that wakes up at about 5 a.m. now that it's summer and starts trying to sit on my head and all of those things. So that's normally what gets me up. We also don't really set alarms in this house anymore because we are morning people. And when I get up, what I do is I love to work. I really enjoy what I do. I'm passionate about my business, and I really am. I feel like I'm on a charge at the moment to empower recruiters and talent sources to find talent more effectively and more efficiently, and basically not to be so frustrated with their jobs, because it's very irritating to wake up every morning and only have two places to look for talent, that being LinkedIn and your local job boards. I want to teach people how to use the whole internet, how to find the best talent, and then how to reach out to them like a human being. So lots of synergies between all of us on the call.
Thanks so much for that introduction, ladies. And Vanessa, I've actually joined one of your courses, and it was eye-opening because this was just in the midst of when everybody was talking about generative AI and how we need to be using ChatGPT, and a lot of people were not willing to spend a lot of money on ChatGPT. And I remember you sort of showing the use cases behind it, which was very, very helpful to all those that were just sort of thinking, should we do it? Should we not do it? So now, in terms of SoSu, and whoever's listening to this, you'll hear me say SoSu. So SoSu is basically Sourcing Summit. This conference has been around there for around 10 years. What it does is it sheds light on the importance of talent sourcing, promoting and spreading new trends and thinking, and obviously bringing a lot of those practitioners from all over the world to come in, network, learn from each other. So for some of us, it was our first time attending as well as speaking. So a few of us, it was our first time there. Gabi, Sandra, Vanessa, tell us about, how has SoSu been for you, whether it was your first time speaking and attending over there or just first time attending. So who wants to go first?
Cool. I'm happy to go first. So I actually have walked a long journey with Full and Sourcing Summit. I'm a big fan. I was actually booked to speak in Tallinn in Estonia in 2020 when COVID hit. So COVID hit in the March. I think I was supposed to be going to Estonia in the June, and then it all went online. So I actually throughout 2-3 years of SoSu going online virtual events, I actually spoke. I then joined the MC crew with Kim Lockenberg, with Wim Damons, with Elizabeth Lemke, Nafar out of Israel, and kind of the 4-5 of us would get together every virtual event. We do all the MCing, all the introduction of people. There's actually a SoSu virtual happening. I'm going to put a plug out there. It's on it's at the 29th of November. It's an AI sourcing summit event, and it's online. So put it in your diaries. And then last year, I was actually in Sydney, your neck of the woods, Dee, and I came and did the opening keynote for Sourcing Summit Australia. And then this year was my first time speaking in person for Sourcing Summit in Europe in Amsterdam, and I absolutely loved it. I always enjoy going to these events because you get to meet so many people that you talk to online, like you three ladies, and you get to meet them in person. And I must say, having been back and spending a large portion of last week watching the videos and the recordings, the learnings were off the charts at this last one. So it was really great, and it definitely is not going to be my last in-person sourcing summit. There's definitely more on the cards.
Vanessa, you were in every picture. I think when I went through the gallery of all the pictures, you were like in every picture. So I could see you lapping up all of that. So
yeah, I think I ticked a box there. I think that could have been one of my goals. I'm not sure, but I did it.
Yeah, awesome. Gabi.
Wow. So Sourcing Summit was actually my first ever time attending, and my first time speaking, and my first time speaking on a stage that big. So it was a lot of firsts for me. And it's not my first time in Amsterdam. That's my second trip there. So, but we won't talk about the first one. That was after university. So you can let your imaginations run wild on what that looked like. My poor husband. But do you know what? I remember I did a podcast ages ago with Shally, and during that podcast, I spoke about this idea of being around people who are like-minded to you. Like, I've always really struggled trying to find a group of people I just gel with. Like, do you know when you walk in a room and you're like, I'm talking, but you're all looking at me like I'm speaking a completely different language? And I think actually being at SoSu, it was the first time I walked into a room of people who, when you spoke, looked at you and went, you make sense. Like, you just gelled with people. Like, you've never met them. Like, I'd never met any of you, but it felt like you were talking to people you'd known for years and years and years, because you're all on this journey where you all want to be better. You all know there are amazing things happening in the world, that if you actually lean on each other and talk to each other, we can learn so much. And that was such an amazing experience to go through and be like, look, I'm not a complete nutter. Like, there are other people out here as crazy as I am. I'm going to classify you lot as crazy, by the way. But it was such a unique experience to see it and just see so many different perspectives being put out on stage on different viewpoints, on different challenges and topics of what's going on in the recruitment space, but just how open-minded everyone was to hear it, and then have such healthy debates rather than being like oversensitive about life if someone didn't appreciate you or didn't agree with what you were saying. And I just found that mindset so refreshing. And I came back so energized. And it's something I never thought I would get from an event like that, because I've done a lot of local networking stuff. But that was like next level vibes. I was buzzed.
It's interesting you say that. I was talking to a friend earlier this morning, and I said to them, I was like, I've attended a lot of other conferences, HR related, recruitment related. I said, but there's something different about the sourcing community. The way that the sourcing community gives, because when you look at the technicalities of what we do, I know we're in 2023 moving into 2024, we can't keep all of that information, but how giving is our sourcing community? It's very different to anything within the whole TA sort of HR sphere that we work in. So to your point, yeah, when everybody's speaking the same language, it just makes us feel like we're part of something so much more bigger than what we do in our 9 to 5 or day in, day out within our own businesses, right?
Absolutely. It makes you feel like you're not just hitting your head against a brick wall. Like, it's not just you going around in circles. But what I really wish is, like, when you talk about sourcing, the whole world still thinks like there's this little group who really acknowledge that they do sourcing. And then this huge world of recruitment that's like, I don't do sourcing. It's like, well, how do you find candidates? They're like, I find them. I'm like, so you're sourcing. Okay, cool. I really wish those individuals would come to the table and join these types of events. Like, it's not just for the hardcores. It's for everyone who wants to up their game. And I feel really passionate. I keep talking to everyone about it, being like, get your ass there. And they're like, I'm not a sourcer. I'm like, do you find candidates? Yes. Okay. Do you do business development? Yeah. Okay. Come here. Book your bum down there and let's keep moving.
Exactly. I can totally relate to that, because when I attended my first SoSu in 2019, imagine that's a long time ago now, it was still in person back then. I felt like, oh my God, what have I walked into here? Because everything that I heard was sounding Chinese to me. I never heard about terms like scraping or X-raying, and I had to look it all up, and I felt really like, oh my God, is this the right thing for me? But as you say, the sourcing community is so giving and so inclusive. So whenever I ask somebody about it, like, what's this, what's that, don't be afraid. Everyone's so helpful. And even if you're a starter, it doesn't matter really, And I mean, back then I didn't know anything at all really. But since then, it really sparked something inside me. It ignited something really inside me. So it was the one session where I was hearing about how can you do a different, or how can you design a different outreach, right? And it's amazing. I was really blown away, because I never even thought about that there are other ways than the usual, I hope this email finds you well template, And I know, and it really, really ignited my whole creativity. And since then, I've become a little bit crazy, probably, trying everything from poems to whatever, A/B testing it all. But it was really mind blowing because I realized what I didn't know. And there was a lot out there what I didn't even consider. And even today, when I walk into a SoSu, I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that's possible, an AI recruiter, or, how to power automate things, and I want to try it all out. And the good thing is that you can always approach everyone, the speakers, the other participants. You can always ask them, how did you do this? Can you help me setting this up? And that's what I find the most amazing thing, that you feel like it's a big family, where you feel safe.
It's interesting that you say that, because sometimes people give without them actually knowing that they're giving. Sandra, and you're a perfect example of that, because in one of my workshops, I remember actually quoted something that you said. I think it was at SoSu Hack. And again, your talk was about outreach. And you said something along the lines of that it's no longer about finding candidates, it's about eliciting a response. And I still use that when I do my trainings, because it's a very powerful message that we're sending out when we're doing these trainings. So to your credit, again, you don't know that, but I still quote you even to this day. So again, you don't know that you're giving, but you are giving without sometimes someone telling you that you are contributing in a lot of ways. And you're right, like so much has changed. Like when we were listening to Guillaume's end keynote, like what was tech and AI back then? Well, AI wasn't there 10 years ago, but look at it now and how things have changed, so there's a lot of things that we have to constantly be open-minded about learning as well. Now, let's talk about y'all's talks. I actually was there for each and every one of your talks, and obviously I enjoyed everything that was there. But to share with the wider audience, let's talk a little about what was the key themes of your talk and why did you choose that to share with everyone at the summit. So, Sandra, let's start with you.
All right. I mean, as I already said, the message in itself is very, very dear and important to me, because I think that we as a recruiter, we have a responsibility in what we send out to the world. You can either make a candidate's day, making them laugh, making them, not cry, hopefully, but maybe cry because of they're so touched. But you always send out something, and I mean, you are coming uninvited into the world of someone out there, right? And you leave a trace, and you better make that trace be something good instead of something boring or disrespectful, even, when you just send something super sloppy or unprepared, and that you show that you haven't really prepared for this message, that you send out some stupid template with zero personalization. And sending out a message with respect, you can really actually make a change to people, not only to their careers, which would be also great, but also to their lives. And I think we're all humans, and we should acknowledge that too, and the other part of my, a part of this speech was also, how do you do this? So one focus was on diversity, or how do I design an inclusive message? Why should I even do this? Because not everyone might be disadvantaged, for example. But my message here is, make an inclusive message the norm, not the exception, right? So everyone feels welcomed. And that is a message in itself. If you mention that, that everyone is welcome, and that you also design it that way. And that you also offer alternatives, in terms of the font or how you transmit your message. Is it a voice message, or do you provide videos? Whatever, you can always offer something alternative But then also it goes hand in hand with, your sourcing efforts. What do you find out about your candidates? What can you weave into your message so you can really make them feel special? And I think that's what always sticks with people, if you make them feel something, right? It's not about the information you're transmitting, the what and the how. It's always about the why, citing Simon Sinek here. So it's all about the golden circle. Why are we doing things, and you want to trigger that part of your brain.
I remember one of your talks, Sandra, and this actually came to me while you were speaking. I think it was on SoSu Hack. You spoke about when you're out, you spoke about neurodiverse candidates as well, and how you can change your approach or your messaging based on your pool of candidates. And I remember that there was a time when I worked for one of the big four banks here in Australia, and we had to change our approach because this candidate had a speech disability and we didn't know that. And then when we found out, we changed the way we interviewed the guy because he was a software engineer. So we had to make sure his interview was through writing. He could not talk. So every time so we had to educate the hiring managers. It was such a massive exercise for us as well, because this was the first time we came across this situation. But it's such an eye-opening thing. And do you think there's a way for us in sourcing and recruiting to be more aware of this?
Wow, that's a huge question. I mean, in general, we should educate ourselves about how people process information. I think this is what neurodiversity in specific is all about. How do we process information? And I mean, society declares this is the norm and this is the other part. But then again, why do we define it as the norm and this is not the norm, It's hard to really say this is normal and this is not normal. So we should all make people feel that they are normal, that they are welcome, that everything about them is all right, And if we do this, I think then we are taking a huge step. And I think recruiters who reach out or sources who reach out, they're always afraid that they could do something wrong and create a shitstorm, This is why a lot of people don't touch the diversity box, and they rather do nothing than anything at all. So my advice here would be really start with small steps, add a little note in your message, maybe that you welcome all candidates. But then you can build upon this and always try a little bit more and more. And eventually you're making a big difference to the life of someone, because someone will read this message and feel like, wow, I'm here, I'm being seen. And when people feel seen, that's the most important thing you can give to another human. And you don't even need to, sorry, Gabi.
What I was going to say is actually, it's interesting because I've got really severe dyslexia, really severe. So actually, written format, when people send me these long messages, I don't read them, not because I don't want to, but actually it exhausts me to read so much poop, to be quite frank. I just get to the point, tell me what you want, and I'll show up and be there. But what's interesting on this conversation of, for you, Denise, having that situation where someone came in and they have a unique setup and a unique requirement. Do you know what, that initial message you send someone and that how you make them feel will help determine whether they feel comfortable in expressing their situation to you. And when you ostracize them from the get-go, from that first initial message, they're not going to share with you their full story. Therefore, you are all being put at a disadvantage because they're not sharing. You have no idea. You're locking heads and you're like, what the hell's going on here? But you have to make them feel comfortable because I'm very proud about my dyslexia. I write on my footer is proud dyslexic. And I've had so many people message me going, I love that. And it actually has. I'm if I make a spelling mistake or a typo, it's not with intent. And I'm okay with that. I'm not perfect, but not everyone is that comfortable in their skins to make such an outward statement.
Exactly.
But grouping together the power of the message that you first send and then how the company can respond with that information is where the magic really happens between human beings, not even recruiters, just human beings working together. So it's interesting how that merges, and I've seen it firsthand.
That's such an important thought, what you said about sharing. why should people share something with you? And a career path always is in some bits a life path. So they're telling you about their life, right? So why should they share about their life with you if you don't share anything? So don't be a robot, make sure you tell them, you're a human as well. Show this, make yourself a little bit naked here,
Yeah.
Don't be too robotic, and this is where AI will never replace you, because you're always being a warm human, and that's the most important thing. Yeah. I think that really sums up, everything about my speech, really, with lots of practical examples, how you can put that into place. And I hopefully could give some great examples how you can really put that into action.
I was saying vulnerability is actually a beautiful thing. So yes, thanks so much for sharing. And I totally agree with you all. And Gabi, I'm going to steal that because I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. So I'm going to put ADHD proud on mine, because
own it, because then other people, like, it is like, honestly, like the funniest story of actually owning my journey was when I used to work in banking. I wrote an email and I was like, please bear with me. I used the wrong bear. I used naked bear. And it was to a very, very senior hedge fund owner. And luckily he laughed in response and was like, Gabi, I think that might be a bit far for this situation. And we laughed and we joked about it. But actually, after that point, I was like, actually, if I can sit comfortably in my own skin and give people that kind of, this is Gabi. And it just helps, like, even day-to-day conversations with people. Like, I've come to do podcasts in the past, right? And people will ask me 3 or 4 questions connected and then expect me to dissect them to be able to answer them. I'm like, I can't do it. So actually, when I come into these sessions, I'm like, ask one question, wait for an answer. And I did a social media post around it. I was like, with interviews, don't ask 2 or 3 or 4 questions in a row. Ask one. Let them breathe, let them sit. And even if you're not dyslexic, in highly stressful situations, trying to retain lots of information and then trying to pull it together in whatever format you need to, I think more people need to become comfortable. And I wish, and I really, really hope for this, more people to become comfortable and be like, this is me, this is who I am, and let the world see that, so then everyone around you can do what's necessary to support you and be more conscious. But if we don't know, it becomes very like, how do I ask you without offending you? And you're like, oh, where do I go with this? It's like, actually, we just need to live in our skins and be comfortable. And if the person you're sitting in front of you doesn't like the truth of who you are, it's a great sense check to be like, could you please exit stage left because you and I are not vibing? That's okay. But we have to come to that journey. And it helps with messaging, communication, interviewing, everything.
I totally like that, because what you just say, it's like, don't put more stress on people than necessary. And I see this sometimes in LinkedIn posts, how hiring managers or recruiters do those stress tests and call people in the night or, email them just to see if they respond, And I think, or those stress interviews, and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, oh God, I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
Army, right? If I'm joining the army, stress test me all you like. If I'm not joining the army, please sit down, stop being a plonker and get a life. Honestly, it's just not necessary. Like, it's just an ego dance. Actually, if someone tried to stress test me, I'd probably quit before I even began.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I hope I'm not on mute. Vanessa, let's talk a little about what you did, the opening keynote for us at SoSu. So tell us a little about what was the theme of your talk.
I just want to comment on what the ladies were saying also about the neurodiversity. I mean, I'm confirmed diagnosed ADHD my whole life. And the only reason why I'm not butting into the conversation today is because it's 20 to 9 in the morning here in South Africa, and I took my medication about an hour and a half ago. So my ADHD is fully under control at the moment. But if we were having this conversation at about 4 in the afternoon, I'd be tickets. So just to say that I agree with what they're saying, is that you've got to think about the recipient, and you're not always going to know these things up front, which is why I always say vary your outreaches. If you're going to send more than one message to a candidate, vary the length, vary what you're trying to get across to them, because one of those emails will resonate with them, maybe not all of them. Cool. So ladies, what I spoke about in the opening keynote, and I actually had a discussion with Phil, obviously, before I went over, I normally do quite a technical presentation at these conferences. Being a sourcing trainer, I feel it's important. And Phil actually said, as the opening keynote, we want something that's going to be inspiring, that's going to make people feel comfortable for the rest of the conference, because there's going to be a lot of presentations around AI, and I need you to kind of like set the scene. So, it was like no pressure from the outset. And I went with a softer kind of view of in a world of AI, yes, it's coming, we can't stop it, but how do we prepare ourselves as talent sources and recruiters in order to deal with the tsunami that's heading our way? So I took 5 key points that us as in this industry, how can we stand out and get ahead of AI? So it was things like making sure you have a strong online brand. Are you being a human being? Are you standing out as that source or recruiter that cares, that's got the human touch? Building community, which is so important at the moment. And, I loved what you said, Dee, about you haven't been to a conference like this. And you're right, it's completely down to the global sourcing community that we're privileged to be part of. So it was all about bringing your human to the game, use the AI. It's never going to replace us, but use it to automate and to make our lives easier. So it was quite a difficult presentation for me, but I must admit the feedback that I've received, post delivery at the conference and since getting home has been absolutely amazing. So I'm thinking that maybe I do need to do more presentations along these lines, as opposed to trying to be technical and keeping up to date with AI, because maintaining the human is actually going to be far more important in my point of view.
That's a really good takeaway from that, Ree. And I think with most of the talks that I had attended at the summit, one of the key things I took that the human element is going to become increasingly more important in terms of engagement, right? Whereas, identifying candidates, all of that can still be automated to some extent. You can still be using your Boolean strings and have tools in the back end to do that. But I think, again, that human element is going to be more crucial than ever. You have to stand out from the crowd and from the noise to a large extent.
And I think, to be fair with this kind of stuff, that human element of it, it's so funny that we're having to be educated on how to be human. Like, it's a really weird world. You're like, well, you've always been it, right? You were born one, you've always been one. What are we doing here? What I've seen really interesting, and I don't know if it was largely COVID driven, where everyone just kind of went like that into their own little holes, lived behind a screen, and we stopped learning how to interact face to face. It seems ironic as we're sitting here on a podcast. But what I've noticed, and especially with the new generations coming through, they're okay living in front of their phones. They are like, it's monosyllabic. They're struggling on how to express their emotions. They're struggling to express who they are. And the more and more technology we have coming through, we saw so much technology discussed during SoSu, right? My mind, I literally walked away and was like, I don't even know where to begin on all the tech you just threw at me, because it's just overwhelming. But the one thing we can always control is how we present ourselves. And you would think it'd be the most natural thing to be like, well, who am I? Who do I want to convey to the world? But people are getting lost because they're being told that they almost don't matter anymore. Technology will take over. A robot will do your job, blah, 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 blah. And people are like, okay, cool. I won't write my message. I'll use ChatGPT to write my message because nobody cares about me anymore. It's that mentality. Nobody cares who I am. So why should I come to the table? And it's like, everybody needs to keep coming to the table for your own mental health. And because humans need humans. It's a non-negotiation on this one. Like tech.
Yeah, Gabi, I completely agree in it, but I do love the way technology enables us to do things like this. We've got you in the UK, we've got Sandra sitting in Germany, we've got Denise in Australia, myself in South Africa. The 4 of us got on really well over the 2-day conference. You guys became, my safe people. If I needed a bit of a gap or I just didn't know where to go and stand and talk to people, one of you guys was who I was looking for in the crowd, to be honest. And I think that that's the beauty of it, because you can now maintain a really good friendship down to technology. But maybe that's because the 4 of us are all very comfortable in our own skins and are happy to do that. I think for complete strangers, I find it quite weird when people enter into relationships online, but they've never met the person in real life.
I know. I don't get that, but it's becoming more and more of a thing, right? And that's the thing. I wonder whether that is that we've become so used to doing these kind of things. Like even I did, right? After COVID, I was like, I can run my business from here. I do loads of virtual calls. I don't have to attend anything in person. And then suddenly I started attending some in person. I was like, I kind of forgot how to network in a room. because we come into a call like this, right? And we know what we want to talk about. We've got an agenda, we've got a direction. We're all really similar in our mindset on sourcing world and all the exciting stuff. But actually, when you walk into a cold room with a whole ton of strangers, that's next level human engagement. And I think a lot of people are forgetting how to do that because they don't have to do it. And that's the bit that scares me. And that's why I can see, Vanessa, like the topic you were talking about, will become even more significant because people have to be retrained, and they'll have to retrain their brains on how to handle human-to-human interaction.
We had breakfast at Schiphol in Amsterdam the morning after the conference, and it was great to see you and catch up. But I literally got onto that. I mean, I think I had a 10-hour flight back to South Africa, literally didn't make eye contact with anyone, noise-cancelling headphones on, and just was like a zombie because I'm completely overstimulated by all of those amazing conversations. So, yeah, you're right. We almost need to train ourselves to get our conference fit again before the next event.
Like Olympic training, isn't it? It's now the Olympic sport. Prepare.
It's funny you're talking about that because Irina made a comment and I was so buzzing with the whole conference because number one, I waited 2 years to attend that conference. Number two, I was there and I was around all these people that I've looked up to, that I've learned from, that I've been connected to. So Irina was like, you have so much energy. And I didn't know how to explain. I was like, Irina, I don't know how to explain to you why I have this energy. And Phil was like, you just have a lot of energy inside of you. I was like, Phil, I can't explain why I have this energy, but I just know that I have a lot of energy. But honestly, in that room, there was this something about, it wasn't even about the topics. It was just the people, the energy that was there. Everyone was there for one reason, 2 reasons, 3 reasons, but we all were there for the same reason at the end of it.
So, Denise, I'm going to interrupt you then, and I'm going to ask you, when are we going to see you on stage at SoSu?
Oh,
yeah.
Well, maybe next year. I haven't said yes just yet, but I don't know if Phil's already mentioned this, but there's going to be one in Sydney next year in April. So I believe Vanessa's coming for that.
Not sure just yet. Need to look at dates. I also have to be in Istanbul in April, so
that's right, for your thingy.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Gabi, before we move on to the next question, tell us a little about, because I found your talk very interesting, because I know a lot of the times people are trying to get off LinkedIn and try new tools. You talked about LinkedIn in a very different light, and you were talking about how you can optimize it and optimize it well. So can you just give us a little spiel about, what it is your talk was about?
Of course. So the driver behind my talk is I kind of, very similar to everyone else in this call, I kind of went through what is everyone else talking about. And I was like, okay, you've all covered these topics, but like you said, there is one massive trend in the world. As soon as you say the word LinkedIn, people pull funny faces, think it's extortionate, don't want to play with it, yada, yada, and want to go and jump off it, right? It's like a sinking ship. But what's really funny is, like, in my mind, I'm like, if you have paid to have access to a piece of technology, learn to use it properly, right? That is my mindset. I don't care whether it's a job board, whether it's your CRM, whether it's LinkedIn. I couldn't give a monkeys, but if you're going to pay for it, bloody use it and get the hunt on. And the whole purpose of my talk was to get people to rethink their position on LinkedIn. If you've got it, like for LinkedIn, there's 940 million users, okay? And don't get me wrong, there is a lot of rubbish in that platform in terms of the search functionality. It is, like most technology, designed by people who aren't hunters. Right. And that's the biggest underlying problem with a lot of the tech that a lot of recruiters adopt these days. They're like, it looks shiny and sexy. I was like, yeah, but it wasn't designed by a hunter. So good luck with that. But it was trying to get people to go, right, those are the limitations. Those are the challenges. And that's cool. Accept what they are. But now how do you navigate that to get the most from this platform? And that's where we wanted to go through, like, how to use, like, I call it one-dimensional searching versus 4D searching. So instead of just putting one search in and stopping, how do you push and pull the platform? How do you get ED&I hunting, right? By removing pictures and first names, right? Really simple stuff. How you can translate Boolean strings and run it through the platforms, which filters are broken, etc. But it was really, my whole aim was to get people to go, actually, there is so much information in this tech stack. If you can learn how to get it out, you're going to be on fire like you are in any platform you have access to. Learn how to hunt it, don't fight it. And just lean in. And that's what I really wanted to inspire people to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Which was the biggest take, or rather, which talk stood out to you, Sandra? Which were one of your favorite talks that you kind of walked away and was like, "Damn, I'm going to go back to my desk and be like, I'm going to start doing this."
Oh my God, that's a super tough question because each single one talk I saw, I was like, I want to do this. Even with not even with more inspirational speeches like Vanessa, I was like, I want to do this as well. So one thing that really stuck with me with Vanessa's talk was after each part where she gave some advice, she would always showcase someone we should follow. So it was a really heartfelt recommendation she gave. And I felt that was such a human move. And where I was thinking, I just want to be like Vanessa one day. Just such a good human.
Thanks, babe.
And you know what? I mean, we all talk about AI and how AI can replace us. And look, that is a classic. Other readers also looked this up move, kind of like the Amazon thing, you know. So, you know, that kind of, you know, reminded me of this, you know. This is a speaker you could also follow, right? But in this context, I felt like, yeah, this is why we're humans, and this is why we're important, maybe, because we are making heartfelt recommendations there. And I've really felt this is being supportive. This is showcasing how you can make a difference to those lives as well, you know? And I really like that. So I think that was one of my favorite parts, actually. But I also liked the talk of Julian Frank with the Power Automate process. That was really, really cool because I'm always looking out for things to make your life easier. You know, I'm a little bit of a lazy person in that sense because I always want to make things more easy and efficient. And he was talking about the back and forth conversations between the sourcing team and the hiring managers, and how could you really install like a Zen desk, one could say, you know, for talent sourcing.
Thanks, Sandra. Vanessa?
Sure. You know, I was actually thinking about this while Sandra was chatting, and obviously love Sandra, and Gabi's presentations wasn't both of them. There were so many amazing presentations, but as mentioned, I actually spent last week going through a lot of presentations. I just think it was unbelievable how so many speakers gave so many nuggets. Like, I'm not actually even going to single out anyone who was amazing because I just think everyone was amazing. I was sitting watching the presentations, taking notes last week. There's still some stuff that I need to look at. Yeah, I just think it was incredible. Just everything. As I say, I can't remember one that really, really stood out because they all just stood out. I was blown away by everyone.
It is really hard to pick. And this is the thing. Like, do you know, normally you can attend a conference and you're like, there's some mediocre talkers and you're like, okay, you're here because you came here 60 times, right? Do you know those kind of moments? You've all been at those conferences, right? You're like, oh, same people, same chat. Like every talk I walked into, someone had a different perspective to what I had or I'd seen. Like, I just remember, like, I was listening to Victor's talk, and his curiosity of how his mind saw something inspired me. Like, listening to Arena, obviously I've watched her for years, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like seeing something she had seen in LinkedIn that I hadn't seen. Like, it is, like Vanessa said, it's so hard to be like, this was like the golden talk. Normally it's easy. Normally I can walk into a conference and be like, was that one? This, honestly, everyone brought their A game because it was, honestly, if you're in sourcing, this is the event to go to because you can't pick a winner.
Yeah. Sorry, but you know what? The good thing is there was something in for everyone. You know, the more techie ones or the starters who would love more soft topics, I would call it. You know, so there was something for everyone. You know, people who want to almost code stuff. You know, or the more Boolean people, the outreach people, or the efficiency people. You know, there was something in for everyone. And all levels.
But I think that's what scares a lot of people from not attending things that called a sourcing summit, because they're like going to be like, oh, it's going to be really hardcore geekers who are like, use 60,000 brackets and in title and like that's the perception of these type of events. But it couldn't be further from the truth. Like you said, like it was such a sprinkle of like human beings to extreme techies over there, but it was like such a range from beginning to end that it's accessible to anyone to walk into the talks that are at the right level for where they want to go on their journey on that particular session. And then every year they can just shift between where they want to go. It was wicked, right? It was inclusive training. I don't know how Phil did it, but he did it.
That was exactly my journey, honestly. I went from zero knowledge to more knowledge, I would call it. But I'm still no geek in terms of X-raying and stuff. But yeah, that's exactly, I could not more at what you just said.
I agree with everything y'all are saying, because it's like every time I walked into a session, I was like, oh, I've done this, but the way they're doing it is slightly different to how I've done it. Now I can go back and implement this. So you were always learning something different to how you are used to doing it. So I think that was the beauty of, going into different rooms, different sessions. And y'all are right, there was something for everyone there. It wasn't just super techie, or it was just wasn't about automation. One last question, and then I'll let y'all get on with y'all's day, and then y'all can say goodbye to me. Obviously, Gen AI is going to be the hot topic for the next couple of years. We're going to see it in our sleep. We're going to see it in our nightmares. We're going to probably have it in our wedding vows. But what are the emerging themes that you're going to be seeing going into 2024 that we as sourcers and recruiters need to be really aware of?
Okay, I'll start with them. I'm actually doing some work today because I'm delivering an AI workshop tomorrow morning. So I think from trends, a lot of what we've touched on here, and it's really heartening to see my three friends here that we are all on the same page. I think the generative AI tools are there. They are coming at us in absolute waves. They're brilliant, but we need to use it to elevate and automate a lot of the admin tasks that I don't think any of us love due to our personality types. But also we need it to not let it take over. So I think the trend is going to be the tools are coming. Let's try them out. If it works for you, then that's great. If it doesn't work for you, then kind of put it aside and use that to elevate your human side. So for me, the key pointers for 2023 would be brand. Get your personal brand out there. So anyone listening to the podcast, start thinking about your digital footprint, Google yourself, what do you find, and choose your platform where you want to start standing out and become known in your niche. I think it's going to force a lot of recruiters and talent sources to specialize in an industry. So it could be the tech space, the finance space, the supply chain, whatever your thing is, and build a community and be known in that space, because that is going to help you immensely in a world of generative AI.
That's a very important point you just made about the Gen AI stuff, because I think what's also important is we need to be using the right Gen AI tools to make sure it's also fit for purpose, not because everybody's using it. I think that's also because I'm seeing a lot of people just try new tools, but you also have to make sure it's fit for purpose at the same time.
So I think, Dee, on that note as well, figure out what is your problem, what are you trying to solve, and then match it to the correct Gen AI tool. Not every Gen AI tool is going to work really well for everyone. You've got to pick the right one according to you, your needs, and the problem you're trying to solve.
I think, though, too, before we even go into usage, the next task is to understand AI anyways, Nowadays, people jump into just using it, but don't understand what an AI model really is and what is the difference maybe to a simple software, or what the basic terms that we use, like a buzzword bullshit bingo, really mean. And before we do this, we need to understand it so we can also use it in a responsible way. Always question yourself, where does the data come from? Stuff like this. So we can also use it in the right way. I think this comes first, and I hope that people will question this much more and educate themselves on this too. So totally recommend Vanessa's workshops there. You should attend it. And I hope people will be more responsible about AI usage.
So I'm the oddball in this one because I actually own a technology company that uses AI. Woohoo! So what's interesting actually is what I see from that tech development side of things and my understanding of all the tech and what's actually going on behind the scenes. I actually have a mobile robotics recruitment business as well. So actually I see some of the stuff they're going. And by the way, the stuff we've got on the market is cannon fodder versus some of the stuff that's going on in some of these big companies, which is actually, we think this is scary. We've just got the leftovers that they don't want to use anymore. And that's what scares me the most. But what really, when I look at it from a tech development perspective, there is a lot of dumb tech being developed, a lot of dumb tech. And the problem I see right now and the danger we're running into in the recruitment space, like we're all running at it with our eyes wide open, but I don't think people are thinking about this, that they're trying to cut corners. There's this talk about ChatGPT or like AI, it doesn't matter who the hell it is, right? We always reference ChatGPT because it's like the first default word to fall out of our mouths at the minute. But it's not just them, but the marketplace of artificial intelligence, full stop. Yes, it can bring efficiencies, but cutting corners and continuing to cut corners off a process is going to result in nothing being left. And if you keep adopting tech because it looks shiny and sexy, I promise you're going to spend a shit ton of money on stuff that doesn't work and is actually going to make you dumber and distract you. Like my first rule of thumb, and I want to see more businesses do this, is get a goddamn procurement process in play and a smart one. If you don't know the questions to ask, come and message me. I will give you the questions you should be asking for every single platform you adopt. But in 2024 and going forward, this tech wave is not stopping. We're on it. We got to ride it, but you've got to make smarter decisions and not sit there like a petulant child when you buy a piece of tech that doesn't work because you didn't ask the right questions. Unfortunately, we have a lot of unethical tech companies out there. Like the world is swarming with them. If I could actually probably write a book just about that. I mean, I think I'd get in a lot of trouble. But you have to be careful and you have to step up and take ownership of that journey because you are responsible. It is your duty of care as a recruiter, as a business owner, whoever the hell you are, to assess the technology carefully and map out your process for God's sake. If you don't have a gap in your process or a problem, stop trying to solve something that doesn't exist. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And if it is broken, think smart and ask smart questions to these companies because they're not on your team. So that's my dark position. But that's, like I said, I see it from a tech owner perspective and the tech that's being developed and the way I see what's coming onto the market. I literally look at it and I spend 90% of my day shouting at my computer and going, stop buying this. Obviously, no one can hear me, which is pretty rubbish. I'm just shouting at a computer. But I need you to go, I need everyone listening to this to really start thinking about it and take that ownership of their journey. And like I said, shout at me if you want help because I'm on the pro-human side and smart business acquisition of tech. Let's start thinking clever.
Gabi, do I see you sort of following Sandra's footsteps and writing a book anytime soon?
I'd love to write a book. I would love to write a book if it wouldn't get me in trouble. That's the problem. I'm so protective of the human race and stuff we do that I think it would get me in a lot of trouble. But I would love to write a book on kind of the procurement process of good tech and smart tech and how to do it effectively. Because we don't have it out there. We talk about it, but nobody really talks about it, if that makes sense. So there we go. Another piece of homework to 2024.
Gabi, Sandra, Vanessa, we've come to time. So thank you so much. I cannot wait for this to launch and for everybody to take away something from this. So everyone, whenever you listen to this, check out Gabi's LinkedIn, check out on Tooled Up Raccoons, Sandra's new book, Vanessa's training page. She has heaps of training. Get onto it, follow her, follow all three of them. Also follow me, by the way. I'm just a small little in the big sea of sources. So everybody, thank you so much. It's been such a privilege and honor to have you all on my podcast. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, everyone. Stay crafty. Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. And we'll be back next week with another exciting episode. If you found this valuable, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, happy sourcing and stay crafty. Until next time.